So, I got to play the Gamescom demo for Total War 40k. Here's everything I learned. Let's go! There's a tutorial to play, a taste of campaign, and a battle challenge to do. And let's start by talking about the thing we're mostly probably curious about because we haven't really seen any of it yet, the campaign side of things. So here we go. Planet side, things are gonna look like this. Which, thank the Emperor, I'm quite relieved about because there is actually an avatar of our army that can walk around, there's settlements. It's good old Total War. I was concerned it was kind of going to be a bit static and more moving like a chess match sort of thing, but no, we can actually freely move around, we've got some movement action points to use, and we can end the turn. And of course, this is only a small portion of the planet, it's not the whole planet, but it's made up of regions, and we move across them to various settlements, landmarks, and of course, battles along the way. And battle screens are going to look just like you'd expect. You can see all of your units, all the enemy units, you can see the abilities that both sides have available, the reinforcements, the garrisons. We can also see in the top left it says Mode Annihilation, so assumedly we're just killing each other, but that suggests there's going to be other types of battles to play. So it's not always just about totally killing the enemy. So all of this is part of the tutorial. When you get into Taste of Campaign, you get to customization, which is very dumbed down for the Gamescom demo. There will be lots more you can customize, but in this case, it's just a few colors, the emblem, which can have a bunch of layers, and of course, you can choose your name either 1, 2, or 3 words long of the different words available, or you can just set yourself up to be like your actual favorite chapter. You'll then go through a little cutscene where you'll see your fleet ships taking out an Orc fleet ship, which kind of suggests some sort of fleet combat, but whether that'll be actual combat or just auto-resolve, or maybe there'll be some kind of boarding battles. Who knows, that wasn't revealed in this gameplay, but we do see down onside the planet there, the objective of our little campaign taster, the astropathic relay station, Theta. So this is the region we're going after on the other side of the planet, currently Orc controlled. We can see an Orc army there, and over here is where we start. We've got a little army here and our own little settlement, essentially, Watch Station Decima, which does have buildings which we can upgrade. It's all very bare bones at the moment. Remember, this is all alpha build. But here we can see a bunch of terms relating to campaign mechanics, approval, requisition, compliance, shielding, that's to do with our fleets in orbit. So yeah, a few bits there, we don't fully understand them yet, but up here we can see the Imperium reputation system. So this is going to be a campaign mechanic just for the Space Marines, I assume. Maybe Astra Militarum, I guess, but it says Imperial reputation is the balance between suspicion and renown, and represents how the Imperium views your faction. And this is either going to gain you or cost you the currency of influence. So an interesting mechanic there. Again, don't really fully understand how it's going to work. Some of the other buttons we can see but can't interact with: faction summary, technology tree, characters, and interfactional actions. So diplomacy by the sounds of it. And we can see the influence currency here mentions it can be utilized for interactions with planetary representatives. So going to be used for diplomacy mostly, as one would expect with a name like influence. And requisition is of course basically our money in a Space Marine campaign. Now down in the bottom left on the settlement screen itself, you can see there's capital and districts sections to it. You can also view the garrison as well to see what's defending there. So it seems like the capital is going to be the main area of this region. You can see on the map itself there's a bunch of different little sections as well. Those, I guess, are the districts, and you can build different things in those. In this demo they don't really do anything, but we get the idea, right? So it's looking like the good old usual Total War construction system with building up your settlements to do whatever you need them to do. Although I imagine they'll be more specialized to whatever the region is, whatever the planet is, whatever the role is of that area, rather than just every settlement essentially being the same like in Warhammer 3. But overall, seeming like it's got a good bit of depth there. Hard to say, of course, without having everything fully fleshed out, but looking good, I think. There's also a population number that plays into your requisition amount. And as for recruitment, that's looking pretty familiar as well, although that's coming from our fleet forces. At least that's how it's going to work for the Space Marines. Other factions may be different. You may be able to take them from the settlements and the planets or by other means. But again, they're going to cost money. They're going to cost upkeep, all very similar to what we know. Recruiting them at the watch station, though, they won't be recruited into our army directly. They'll be recruited to the watch station, and then they'll have to walk to wherever our army is. Or they can walk around by themselves and be their own little army. They don't actually need a lord or anything. Now, as you can see here, I have zoomed out from the planet and we can see the entire system with a bunch of little different planets and moons and whatnot, but we can't actually interact with anything else out here, just the one planet at the moment. And we can see with this planet that the astropathic relay itself is the key building in this region and the one we want to control. The whole reason you would want this planet is for that astropathic relay. But another thing we can see here in the bottom left, the governor of the planet, Duke Jacob, whatever the fuck that number is. He's got a couple of traits here, Fanatic and Chieftain. Again, what these are really meaning, don't really know. He's a member of the ecclesiarchy, so he's probably a bit of a knob. We can see here, though, in the attitude log, you bombarded their planet. Attitude impact negative. Won't somebody think of the children? And you see, I didn't think of the children when I did actually bombard the planet. But it was an accident, right? Shit happens. Literally, my first time looking at the Theta settlement, I was looking down here at the districts, and then I saw this little button, and I made a classic gamer move of just pressing a button and seeing what happened before actually reading what it said. And then, I killed a bunch of children. So, not my finest moment, but I thought, I'm bombarding them, that's probably good, right? I'm going to hurt their garrisons, although their units didn't actually look that hurt at all. And I didn't even realize it had killed a bunch of children and got a negative effect until I read that tooltip just now. So all in all, don't let your governor bomb the children. It's probably not going to do him any favors. Now, also down here, we have a bunch of edicts. We can employ these for various gains, but they will come at a cost, like the construction edict, which will give you cheaper construction, but it's going to cost you influence per turn. So just another little campaign mechanic to balance there. Now, on our way to the relay station, I notice a little question mark here and something blue sticking out of the ground, which it turns out is a Land Raider wreck that we can go and salvage. So we head on over there, and then we can find our little button up here, and then we can recover the fallen Land Raider and get a Land Raider in our army. So just an example of something you can find around the map as you explore. Now, as I start to move west, I am going to end the turn, and we'll see this little orc army here is going to come after me, and we're going to be forced into a battle. Although I have to auto-resolve it, just as part of the demo, I assume. And just randomly here, taking a look at the orc ability, the Y, you can see all the effects of that there, plus 75% melee damage. Jesus! But yeah, taking the auto-resolve in this one, as we have to, we can see it says victory and low casualties at the top, so it still seems to tell you what exactly is going to happen, no guesswork involved. And when we chase that army down, we're again going to auto-resolve, although this time we don't get to see that 4 of our units actually got killed off, and that seemed to happen every time, so I think that's kind of supposed to happen. It's like a scripted thing that those units die, but again, just for the demo, I'm sure. Now, I do try to explore around the regions. I can see little constructions around that look like they should be able to be interacted with, and I guess these are the districts that might have different things, and maybe in the full game there will be something to interact with there. I did move over to some of them, couldn't really seem to do anything though. But here you can see I'm moving over a couple of recruited units and adding them into my army. So almost like a Medieval 2 thing of having to run them over to the army, but I think you can recruit units directly to your army if you're in your own regions. But finally moving towards Theta now, and as I get close, it actually just kind of pulls me into the battle without me actually clicking the order to go and fight it for whatever reason. But we can see there's a pretty chunky orc force there. They've got some garrison units as well. And there's a lot of strong boys here. There's stompers, there's mega knobs, there's a big boss, battle wagons. We're going to have some work to do. Cue cool battle intro cutscene. So, coming into this battle, it's my first proper battle in the game, other than the tutorial one, which was heavily scripted. So I'm taking a good look around, getting a lay of the land, seeing what's up. We can see a load of guardsmen units kind of half dead all over the map. They're going to do a bit of holding the greenskins back for us. Orcs rather, not greenskins. This isn't Warhammer 3. But naturally, the first thing I did is take a look at my units, and I see I've got a librarian as my kind of leader, who is actually a psyker. My first look at a psyker in battle, I did wonder how they would work. We can see in his weapons he's got Witchfire, so that's what he's just going to fire at the enemy as sort of a ranged weapon, but he also has an activatable, usable ability of Vortex of Doom. So essentially like magic from Warhammer 3 here, going to be a usable Vortex spell, and most interestingly at the bottom it says Warp Instability. If killed whilst this effect is active, the Psyker may explode, conjuring a second Vortex of Doom. Classic Psyker. And if you're wondering what that vortex looks like, here it is. I'm using this in a different battle, but these storm boys landing down, I'm going to drop it right in the middle of them. They're kindly going to stay put there and get absolutely annihilated by it. And off they fly in quite a different way to what they usually fly. So Psykers, rightly so, seeming very powerful. Now, in terms of unit stats, we kind of know already that it's more about the weapons than the units themselves. The weapons have the stats, and what weapons they're using will determine their role on the battlefield. There is going to be some element of customization with units as well. The extent of that, though, remains to be seen. But largely the system seems to be working on the light, medium, heavy that you can see on all of these unit cards and how effective they are against those things. Light being infantry, medium being bigger infantry like mega knobs, and large being big boys like tanks or dreadnoughts or death dreads. But there also is super heavy stuff as well like stompers. We also know the units will switch weapons automatically to find the best one to use against whatever target they're aiming at. And even so with grenades, they'll use a frag grenade against infantry and a crack grenade against a tank. Overall though, it's really hard to know how this system is actually going to work and feel and how it's going to play into your unit matchups and how important it is to get the right ones on the battlefield as it is in every other Total War. Visually though, everything's looking pretty damn fantastic as you'd expect from a Total War game. This librarian in Terminator armor speaks for itself, his Terminator bodyguards looking pretty damn gnarly too. So visually, nothing to worry about with Total War 40k. It's undoubtedly going to look great. The landscapes and maps look great. The units look great. The animations look great. And this is still alpha build, of course, so some polish to go on top. And now please enjoy some unit ASMR. Tell me what you think of these bolter sounds. I think they sound good, but they could be a little more punchy and beefy. I very much enjoyed those armor ching sounds as well. This is from the tutorial battle, just slaughtering some orcs. But yeah, audio sounding great so far. Now, coming into this battle, I decided to split my army up into two, with one lot coming here down the hill, with the other lot coming down the hill to face all the orcs you can see in the top right there. And one thing that was a little weird to me was the changing of controls. Here you can see me trying to use Alt left mouse button drag to move my army in formation, like you can do in Warhammer 3, but it doesn't work. I don't know if they've changed the control for this game or whether it was disabled for the demo, but you couldn't do that for some reason, so I'm hoping that's still a thing, just maybe on a different hotkey, although, you know, I like it where it is. Now, over on the left side, the orcs have snuck up on me. They must have been hidden by line of sight because I was trying to get into this cover, but they were right there on top of me. And that's something I did notice fighting the orcs. They do not give you a lot of time to set up. They will rush you pretty quick, which is obviously how orcs should be. So that's all good. And also how orcs should be. There's a lot of orcs coming. So it's a pretty intimidating amount to look at, but that's how orcs work, right? Lots of numbers, whereas Space Marines, less numbers, but tougher boys. Looking at this though, you do have to wonder, obviously there's no kind of formation here, but that's orcs, right? So maybe this is making sense. But are Space Marines gonna fight like this? Are Eldari gonna fight kind of mindlessly formed like this? Or will the AI be able to form some kind of coherent formation to actually have a more tidy battle? I guess we'll have to see. Tidying up the orcs on the left here though. And just as we're finishing these up, I decide to think about moving on and where I'm going to go next. Down the hill, obviously, and then I realize this is that little bit of the map where the train is that can be destroyed. We remember seeing that in one of the CA videos. So we're going to try and do that, basically, and launch a little surprise attack on the orcs, who are about to rush through the center at my main little force there, and I'm going to use one of my cluster bomb artillery strikes when they get in this tunnel. And you can see the blue line go up there. That's showing you when it's going to go off, so there is some timing involved with these little bombardments and strikes. I've also got the lance strike, which is like the orbital laser from the sky. Now, as for my little surprise flank, well, the orcs have actually shot the train before me for some reason. I don't know. They shouldn't have known I was there. They shouldn't have been able to see me. I guess they could maybe see me up on the hill, but either way, flank ruined. Now, I'm going to use my lance strike in the center here, even though I know it's probably supposed to be saved for the stomper. Again, like the CA video, I'm actually going to let go of the right mouse button, which does let you drag it around and control it, but if you don't, it just stays where it is, and the orcs very kindly walk into it. So it's still going to do a bit of work for me, but if that stomper comes along, I might be in trouble for the next 2 minutes until it's off cooldown. It's starting to hit the enemy from the left now, spreading their forces. Gonna call down some Terminator reinforcements, because, you know, why the hell not? And this is one of the big pluses of the Space Marines, is being able to drop down your reserves wherever you want, whatever time in the battle. So wherever you need them, you can call them down. They don't have to run in from the edge of the map or anything. But as you can see at this point, I'm looking pretty overrun with orcs. There's a lot of them coming, still in good health. Gonna cool down my other Terminators behind the blob, although that's gonna turn out to be a massive mistake, as I noticed the Stomper has just arrived, so they're gonna be right next to that. Great. Although Terminators do teleport in, I should note they didn't come down in a drop pod. Now, overall with the Space Marines, it did feel a bit like easy mode in some cases. There was times where I didn't really feel like I was doing very well, but I still won. Bit like the Dwarfs in Warhammer 3, you can kind of get by on just how strong they are as a faction, even if you play badly. But by the same token, we have to remember this is a Gamescom demo. It's designed for people who have probably never played Total War before, a lot of them, to be able to play the game and enjoy it without getting absolutely slaughtered. So we do have to remember that, and it's probably easier-fied for the general public. So yeah, difficult to gauge the strength of the factions and the difficulty. There was no difficulty control, so I don't know what this was on. Probably normal, hopefully not easy. But by no means was I landslide winning every battle. In fact, some of them were very, very close. But largely here, I've got the Orcs beaten down. Most of the units left are pretty beaten up. Just that big Stomper to deal with. And my Lance Strike is about to come off cooldown, thankfully, in 5 seconds. So that should be the end of that. Let's get this finished. Gimme it. There we go. And we're going to hold down right mouse button so that I can aim it at the Stomper the whole time and get that maximum damage. But I'm not quite sure. I mean, on the unit card it says Super Heavy Walker under the name Stomper, but then just below that it says Heavy. So if you don't have a Lance Strike, I'm not really sure what you're supposed to use to deal with this thing. Just the same weapons that deal with other heavy units like tanks, normal tanks, not massive fucking ridiculous Stomper tanks. Not sure. I guess so. It's just going to take a lot of firepower from heavy weapons, and if you don't have them, I guess you're kind of screwed. Going to drop me a little Vortex here from my Psyker, looking for a good target. Going to go for that blob, I think, even though it might commit a little bit of friendly fire. We'll put it on the edge so it doesn't kill too many of our own boys. At least if I remember to press the right button, it might work anyway. So that's going to go off, hopefully finish off the units in this area. And you can see the battle wagon there. That's actually defeated now, and it's basically done. It's routing. But what it does is it drives around and tries to do a little bit of damage before it inevitably explodes. Any second now, especially as it's driving into the vortex. But yeah, it has like a little suicidal death ending that could potentially let it do a little more damage with its explosion. And speaking of explosion, there goes the Stomper. I must have managed to finish that off with the Land Raider. And on the right there, you can see the other 3 buffs that I haven't really used in this battle, actually, just above the minimap. Those 3, I used them more in the later battles as I'm getting better at the battles, because this is like my second battle or whatever. But those, one of them is a speed and accuracy buff, one is basically a melee buff, and the other a ranged buff to an area. So you just want to use those on your groups of troops that are in melee fights or in ranged fights. And that does kind of seem to be a pretty big part of the Space Marine game, as well as making good use of those different bombardments and abilities. I guess you're not going to have those early game in a campaign. You'll have to earn those, because obviously this demo is probably tailored, so you can just mess around with that stuff. But we got the victory here finally, and Astropathic Relay Theta is now ours. But we don't get to see the fruits of our labor because that is the end of the demo. So that's the campaign portion of the demo. Pretty cool stuff. Now to finish, I'm just going to play through the challenge battle that was part of this demo, and also give my thoughts on my general experience of the demo and of playing Total War 40k, what I liked and what I'm still a bit concerned about. First of all, this battle, you'll notice, is pretty much the same map as we just fought on. I'm just on the other side of it now. And for the most part, I'm just going to show this unedited gameplay in the background while I talk over the top of it, although I'm sure I'll mention things here and there. This was my first attempt at the battle, and I do end up playing it 4 or 5 times more, trying to play it in a different way every time, using different parts of the maps or different tactics, strategies, but I'll show those other attempts in a separate video in a couple of days. For this attempt though, I'm pretty much playing the obvious battle plan choice of moving up to this bit of cover and dealing with the Orcs as they come through these choke points. So overall, I really enjoyed my experience with the demo. I got to play for about 2.5 hours and it flew by. There's a lot of things I didn't get to look at, which I wish I did now. But yeah, overall, extremely pleased, especially with the campaign, that there is a little army avatar that moves around a campaign map, because I feared that would be gone for this, and then it wouldn't really feel like a Total War. You see this ability here, actually, this Orc missile, this red circle filling up, that's an Orc ability about to go off. I got to try and get my units away from there, but we don't really manage it, and then big fucking bada boom. So one of the Orc fleet bombardment things for you there. And another one of my bombardments here, actually. This is a barrage, so it's going to shoot down like 4 or 5 times and just obliterate this blob when I press the right button. So yeah, it's great. The campaign seemingly feels like a Total War game at first impressions anyway. It does really feel, though, that what's in this demo is really just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more on top of what we've seen, so still a lot more to discover. With the battles, I did enjoy those too, although it kind of felt hard to really feel like I knew what was going on. The Orcs come at you like this in a big massive blobness. And so trying to do anything tactically other than trying to fall back and shooting them a lot and using your bombardments to hit them, that's pretty much it. Getting unit matchups wasn't really that much of a thing. I tried to do it more in the later battles using my Hell Blasters to get after the medium targets or the battle wagons, the killer cans, or Death Dreads rather. but it was really hard to tell if I was being effective with the units or not, especially as the greenskins do rush you. They are a rush melee faction, that's part of their thing, that's cool. They do make it very difficult for you as even Space Marines to do a lot, other than to end up in melee. And I'm not really sure if I did something well to help my Space Marines win their fights, or whether I just got by on the strength of Space Marines being the dwarfs of 40k that kind of just win the battles for you almost. But like I say, maybe that's just a demo and the difficulty, hard to say at this point. What I'd really like to be able to do is just sit down and just do some unit testing and see how effective the different units are against the different unit types, do some one-on-one matchups, see what different units can do, and then there's all the customization that's going to come into play. How is that going to change a unit? The different weapons that they have. So yeah, it's maybe a little bit hard to tell at the moment how things are working, whether the combat's been oversimplified in some way. There's a lot of stats on the weapons, but what they really mean, it's really hard to tell at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how it feels to play as other factions, or fighting as other factions. When I'm playing Space Marines, fighting Eldari, they're going to be more ranged focused. They're not going to rush me and overwhelm me in melee. So in theory, that'll feel like quite a different game to fighting Orcs, and I will have more time to think about matchups and to get the right ones, and feel like I'm actually making smart tactical decisions that are winning me the battles, rather than Space Marines winning me the battles. I did forget to mention actually that all of the Space Marines pretty much had an activatable ability of some kind. For most of them it was a speed boost so they could run a bit faster. The Intercessors and stuff had that. The Assault Marines obviously had a jump ability so they could jetpack around. The Hellblasters had an overcharge ability so they could do more damage for a short space of time. And it's those things alongside the bombardments and buffs that are above the minimap on the right there. Using these things was a large part of winning the battles, and I tried to ask myself objectively, okay, am I enjoying playing these battles? Am I bored at any point? Is there nothing to do at any point? Well, against the greenskins, you'll definitely have plenty to do because, like I say, they're right on top of you very damn quickly. I was trying to use strafing in some of the later battles, and that does help a lot so you can walk backwards and keep shooting the orcs as they're advancing towards you. And of course, there is the cover system as well, which I was trying to utilize a lot of the time where possible. But again, you're just in melee so quickly that you kind of stop using it. Although I guess it still counts as cover if you're being shot at from distance. But for Space Marines, I think staying in cover is less of an essential tactic as it will be for Astra Militarum or for Eldari. With Space Marines, you can get away with standing out in the open a bit more, especially against orcs who are more looking for the melee than trying to shoot you. But here I've been using all my bombardments and stuff a lot, using that Lance Strike to try and get rid of the Stomper. He's nearly down. I'm getting pretty beaten up here though, and there's still a lot of stuff coming. Using all my reinforcements, got aggressors here for the melee. I wonder if maybe the game speed is a little fast. Maybe it could come down by like 10 or 20% just to give you a bit more time to think about things, pick those better matchups, because like I said, it is kind of difficult. Maybe it's just because I'm new to the game, I'm just kind of rushing everything and going, what the hell is going on? It sounded weird. That was just me shaking my head really fast. But as expected, I'm getting overwhelmed here, so I'm trying to fall back to a nearby hill, getting some high ground to shoot down on the orcs. We should, in theory, do more damage from higher ground, as we normally do in Total Wars with missiles. I've even forgotten to close my reserve screen at this point, so that's taken up half the screen. Good stuff, me. But there was honestly a bit of a weirdness to the demo because I did win every single battle I played. Now, of course, I'm a very experienced Total War player, but there's times where it came down very, very close quite often, and it seemed like maybe I was being given a win almost, just so, you know, a demo, it seems cooler when you win right when you come down to this last stand. You've only got a few boys left against a big horde of enemies, but yet somehow you still manage to win. I don't know. Maybe that's all in my head, but either way, it does make it difficult to gauge this demo and what's really going on, and to fully understand the game and the difficulty in the factions, like I said earlier. But don't panic, surely eventually I will remember to close my reserve screen. It should come. There we go, we've done it. Nice. But here, like the Stomper's obviously supposed to be absolutely terrifying in melee, and here it is right next to a bunch of my units in melee, but it doesn't really seem to be doing a lot, which is kind of weird. But yeah, overall, anyway, regardless whether the demo is helping me or not, I still very much enjoyed playing the battles and trying out the different ways to play the battles, and I look forward to seeing the different types of battles and what those will bring. Assumedly, there's not going to be any kind of classic Total War sieges, which I don't think is a great loss given Warhammer 3 sieges, although, I don't know, they do add something in a way. I guess there'll be something similar, some kind of walled cities and settlements to fight over. As long as I don't have to watch ghosts climb ladders, I am happy. But that's most of my thoughts on both the campaign and the battles. What are you thinking? You've just watched this, maybe your first time seeing this. How are you feeling about the look of the campaign? Does it feel Total War enough to you, or maybe not so much? Are you wanting something else? Let me know down below. Do remember as well, of course, though, that this is an alpha build of the game, so still early days, still a lot of work to do. CA are dropping a stream later on, I think, about this, so they probably will explain some things that maybe I've missed here, but still my cautious optimism grows for the game. And this is, like I said, just the tip of the iceberg. We do know that there's going to be a galaxy map, so we're just in one system. You're going to pan out, there's going to be more systems in that little area, and then you're going to pan out, there's going to be the whole fucking galaxy with millions of systems. It's going to be insane, is the idea, I think. And so campaigns are going to be quite different. They could just be maybe a short little couple of planets to deal with, maybe even one planet, or they could span over a few systems. And then you're going to zoom out of that once you're done with that campaign and go to some other part of the galaxy and play a different campaign with a different narrative. Maybe even as a different faction. I think you can switch around your factions. And here you can see me trying to figure out the strafing. I'm trying to figure out the hotkey. I played this a year ago when it was like pre-alpha, and there was a strafing hotkey button. I'm sure it was like Alt and then just right mouse button. But that doesn't seem to work in this. There is no strafe hotkey, so you just have to use the button that's down in the bottom left. And about 10 minutes later, I finally found the button, strafe move. I'm going to click it, click the order here, and you're going to see my boys start walking backwards. Maybe the hotkey is disabled in the demo, but I'm sure it'll be in the final game anyway, because that'll be a very important move, especially for Space Marines. But we're about done over here anyway. The stuff on the hill didn't really need to do a lot. I think the aggressors sorted out a lot of the infantry that's left down here. There is a battle wagon that's on its last legs. I've got a psyker with a little vortex left, so I'm going to finish everything off with that. Drop it on this pile and hope for the worst. Be cool to see what other psyker abilities come along as well. Assumedly, you'll be able to unlock more, or maybe different psykers will just have different abilities. Still, so many questions, but we can see orcs flying around in a lovely fashion at the moment. Not really doing any damage to the battle wagon, although that's pretty much on its last legs, I think. Actually, here I was trying to do a little bit of unit testing. I was bringing my Hellblasters over to use on the battle wagon, because the battle wagon is technically a heavy unit, right? So my Hellblasters that are good against medium units shouldn't be terribly great against the battle wagon, but I thought I'd try them out, because, you know, they got plasma rifles after all. So finally I bring them over right in front of the battle wagon. The other units shooting it don't seem to be doing much damage. I just popped the Hellblaster's ability, and now it looks like they're actually doing some meaningful damage. So a medium unit can do pretty good damage to a heavy unit, it seems. Although I've just noticed the Hellblasters have 4 bars on their heavy bar, when before it was just 1. So I think the ability boosted them up to 4. And there goes the Orc Battle Wagon Kamikaze in the wrong direction. But yeah, a little bit of unit testing there to know the Hellblasters can be better against heavy if you use their ability. Victory for this battle. And there we go. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the future. Check out the Patreon and YouTube memberships. Otherwise, I'll see you in the future. Bye!